Tom, you gave council an update tonight on the Agawa Canyon tour train and the ACR passenger service. Maybe briefly tell us what is going on there.
Well, we're right at a point now where I would say that we're probably at the short end of a process, or the tail end of a process that has been a long time in coming. This started out in the beginning of 2014 when there was an announcement made that the passenger service would no longer operate. We've gone through an exercise of bringing a group together of stakeholders, impact assessment, making the case to the Government of Canada, having the Minister advise us that they will be prepared to offer financial assistance. And now we're at a point where we're getting the short strokes sorted out about the agreement between the Government of Canada, the City of Sault Ste. Marie, and the third-party operator, Railmark Canada.
Now, an agreement was announced earlier in the spring, but it seems to be there seems to be an issue with financing.
Well, we came back, I think it was April 13th, we came to council. And we put forward the case we knew at the time. We asked for approval in principle, proceed to prepare the agreements. And unfortunately, immediately after that, the financing for Railmark Canada did not proceed. So we, the proponent, Railmark Canada, spent a lot of time in sort of reorganizing itself, getting the financing it needed to operate the passenger service, but wasn't able to conclude its arrangements for the tour train. So we're proceeding, and he had hoped to combine the two together. Right now there are two separate initiatives. We're working on the passenger service, and we're down to the short strokes of a set of preconditions and finalizing the agreements so we can bring them forward to council.
Yeah, there seem to be a lot of unanswered questions. Besides the financing, there seem to be concerns. Well, has the city got involved more than it would like? I think as the mayor.
Well, yeah, I think that I think you have to see these things through. These things aren't easy. It's been an extraordinary amount of work. Certainly didn't anticipate this at the beginning, but you can't, because there's a lot of hard work, it doesn't mean you stop. I think you have to see this process through, and I mean, that it is what it is. I think that what really needs to be reinforced is the alternative is no passenger service, and frankly, in my opinion, a significant lost opportunity in tourism development that we have not seen before. That railway goes into a remarkable part of the country. We don't have the tourism products that we need. We need to focus in on that. We need to grow our tourism industry.
You've got a couple of short-term hard dates, June 15th and June 22nd. What is the significance of it?
I think the dates were June 22nd, which is the next council meeting.
Yes.
And then I think the following one, you've lost me a bit, I'm not sure, and then the other one, I would expect that the key dates from my perspective are June 22nd, and then the following would be there would be a bylaw approved with the signing. So
let's stick to June 22nd.
Yeah.
That's a very important
That's
meeting.
an important date where I have to put together a comprehensive package. The EDC has to put the package together on behalf of stakeholders that makes the case. I think the mayor was very clear on his reservations, his concerns, and I have to effectively speak to those. But at the end of the day, and I really reinforce this, it's up to council.
Is this in the city? Will it be in the city's best interest, what you're going to present?
My experience has been in more than 20 or 25 years in economic development that it is very difficult to reestablish a major piece of infrastructure after it's been shut down. So putting a passenger service and keeping it running, as much work as it might be, is a lot easier than trying to start one from scratch. And the longer a passenger service does not operate and that there's not the opportunity for tourism, the greater the likelihood that you will never see it again.
I guess maybe I should go back to later this week when you hope to hear regarding the finances from Railmark and that they've secured that. Can you give us some detail there?
Well, I'm not sure what detail I can provide. I mean, the purpose of seeking the finances is the equivalent of 3 months 3 months working capital, or the operating the train for 3 months, and that's the number that we're looking for. And we've had discussions with Railmark and with a number of financial institutions, and they're exploring that right now.
And so, if that doesn't happen in 2 weeks, for the sake of argument, and the mayor
I think at some point we have to reach a conclusion about this. There's a number of factors at play. Railmark is currently operating that railway without a subsidy. It's invested a considerable amount of money for insurance. It's made a commitment to purchase the assets from CN of the rail of the passenger service, the engines and rail, the rail cars and so forth. So suddenly now he's got an asset that he can't use. I mean, then we've got a problem. He has no revenues coming in. He doesn't have the ability to transition. And that's the issue.
I guess Councillor Sheehan brought up scheduling. I mean, that's another factor here in getting really the tour season underway.
Well, yeah. First of all, he's operating 3 days a week right now.
Right.
That's when I say three round trips. So 3 trips north, 3 trips south, and he goes from Sault Ste. Marie to Hearst. And and what he's going to be, what we're talking about is that's great in the summer, but in February or dates where it is not, February is not as bad because there's a lot of snow machines that might be interested, but there are certain dates where there's historically not been a lot of traffic. So why would it make sense to operate that 3 times a week with no one on the train? I think it's reasonable for all concerned that if we have a schedule that's with enough notice that's less than that, it's 2 times a week, perhaps even 1 time a week. But at least everybody knows that that's going to be the arrangement going forward and they can plan accordingly.
This agreement was said to be similar to that involving the Huron Central Railway. That seemed to go a little bit more smoothly, the HCR agreement involving the city, than this has been so far with the other two.
Well, I have to tell you, I guess it all depends. I was involved with that agreement when I worked for the federal government. I tell you that there were some significant precedents set there. It was the first time that monies had been provided by the provincial government for short rail infrastructure, which is something they've avoided. We were able to make the case that infrastructure dollars should be used for short line for the federal government. So that was a $30 million deal, that not an insignificant amount of money. We primed the pump, meaning the government of Sault Ste. Marie really was the leader in that respect.
But they don't feel to be doing that here.
No, they don't feel it. Well, frankly, it's a different arrangement. It's a different circumstance, and in that circumstance, we took the initiative, and we had some degree of control. In this one, we are not in control. But my point is, had we not intervened, we would not have a passenger service. And my argument from an economic development standpoint, going back to my original comment, is if you do not, it's much easier, and the analogy is it's much easier to retain a job than to create a new one. Right. The same fashion applies here. It's much easier to retain an existing asset than to create a new one.
So what do you hope to see after the June 22nd meeting?
What I would like to see after the June 22nd meeting is the agreements being approved, that the process is put in place. We start the discussions with Transport Canada, establish the monitoring agreements, and move forward. And the folks that are the stakeholders can get more engaged with Railmark and work on a schedule that makes sense and develop new opportunities in tourism for that railway. And I think there's some really exciting ones.
So where do you see in the longer term, a year, 3 years down the road? Is this still going to be...
Well, I think...
because there is that option for, I believe, it's CN, it might be another party to pull out of this or to
Well, look, at any point along the way,
yeah.
It won't be CN pulling out, maybe Railmark.
Yeah.
They may find that it's not a profitable operation and they may choose to cease operations. That's entirely their prerogative. What we've done is given them a ramp to increase revenue and opportunity. My point is that I think from my perspective, it makes sense to make that investment and effort because the alternative is nothing.
So is this a work in progress, or are we really on that short end where
I feel, speaking personally as someone who's worked on this thing for now the better part of a year, I'm certainly hopeful at that short end because I don't want to continue to sustain this kind of effort on one very focused project. There's a lot more important, there's a lot of other important things to do in this community and economic development.